Good morning for January 7th from Ken's RC Workshop. Today I'm going to talk about hand sanding tools. First of all, it's January 7th, 2025. Merry Christmas to my Ukrainian model builders out there. It's Ukrainian Christmas for those that are on in what they call the Gregorian calendar. Going to talk about hand sanding and sanding blocks in general, and then I'm going to talk about these Permagrit tools I've acquired over the years, which ones are my favorites. First of all, got a big tote of sanding paper. I've really been liking this 3M waterproof sandpaper lately. I've been buying it at Princess Auto when it's on sale. They've had some pretty good prices. Got all kinds of different grits, from 60 grit to 220, 80, 100, 400, 600, 800. Even got some Tamiya 600 grit sandpaper. If you want something really fine. I just find that this purple stuff has been just working better than the standard garnet sandpaper. It seems to clog out. And, I do these videos to pass on what I've learned from my other model builders. So that if you really enjoy building RC airplanes, scale RC airplanes, scale RC warbirds, all the balsa wood, having good tools makes the hobby enjoyable, fun, and a lot more pleasurable. I'm not the greatest builder, but I find these tools have increased my finish, my building. Each certain application, certain tools requires a different sanding block. I buy these foam blocks. They work okay. They tend to wear out quite fast. If they're too big, I cut them in pieces off of them and make them smaller. I build blocks out of styrofoam, wrap the sandpaper around, overlap the glue joint. I bought rubber hand sanding blocks. I make round dowel blocks out of dowel. For sanding tight areas, different grits. I use PVC pipe. Need some bigger blocks out of wood. You can see how these garnet blocks wore off. Bought some retail sanding blocks that a sanding belt from a belt sander will fit around. You slide them off and on. This one's made by Sand Devil. I don't know if it's still available. This one I just made out of a piece of 2x4 to fit a sanding belt. Also use these Great Plains T-bar sandings, but I tell you, nothing does the job for me like these Permagrit sanding blocks. My Flying Pal Mark, he put me onto this handy sander. It's a palm sander. You slide it onto your palm. These things stick on with Velcro, these different sanding sheets, and it's just great for sanding the top of the wing. Really like that. You can also buy these custom sanding tubes. They work pretty good. But what I do like is the Permagrit blocks. And I first became aware of these Permagrit blocks on my first trip to EAA Air Venture in Oshkosh, Wisconsin. It's a big, long, week-long aviation extravaganza. It's just a fantastic place to go, and I recommend everybody goes to Air Venture Oshkosh as often as they can make it. And when Burt Rutan's foam composite airplanes were popular, Permagrit had a booth at EAA AirVenture, and they would sell these tools to the home builders for sanding these epoxy composite airplanes. And so each trip I would go down there, I would buy 1 or 2 tools and build up my collection. Finally I got quite a few, So you can see they range from a small 6-inch block like this, where it's coarse on one side, fine on the other side, concave, convex block. Not being sponsored by Permagrit, but just like using your tools, and they work well. When they clog up, you soak them in acetone or lacquer thinner and the glue comes off. And same with this 12-inch block. I think it's about 120 grit on one side and maybe 220 on the other side. They're just nice to hold for my hands. This 24-inch sander, same thing. Fine on one side, coarse on the other side. It's good for sanding long areas or sheets, keeping them straight. They also make these flat sanding sticks. You can buy a fine and a coarse. Fine and a coarse. You may wonder why I've put neon monocoat on them. It's just sometimes when I'm building, these things get lost under the wood and I can't find them and I get pissed off, so I put some bright monocoat, stick-on monocoat on them so that they stick out like a baboon. But again, you can buy smaller convex, concave sanding tools, round ones, different grits, fine and coarse, angle ones, fine and coarse, hand ones like these quarter square are fine and coarse, great for sanding in, notches and formers or wherever, and ribs to help your spars or stringers fit better. Round one with a handle, coarse and fine. Especially like this Permagrit one, that's a needle shape to it. And it's just great for getting in small holes and sanding them out. Again, you can tell I put a bunch of tape on it to help it sticks out. And they also sell blocks with different grits you can buy, and they really work great. I think this is a 60. I put it on a homemade block. I just bent it in there. And say if you're doing a rough sand with 60 grit, just to say you got some cowling block you want to get to shape, this just works fantastic. It really cuts through the wood. And what I also done with these, you can also buy these sanding sheets. You could use them that way or bend them if you want to get around someplace. But what I did is I cut some pieces off them and I cut them onto this little block made, this hardwood block, and I've cut it. It's about 1 inch by 2 inches, and I glued the carbide sheets on them, epoxied them on. So I got coarse on one bigger flat surface, and then fine. And this low block just come into small spots. It just fits in there and works so well, and I just love it. So this low block, it's one of my favorite Permagrit tools. This flat sander, again, it's one of my favorite sand tools. And this little needle file with the carbide on it, it's one of my favorite sanding tools. That's about it from the workshop today. Posting these videos because I want everyone who loves building balsa wood and plywood models have success in their projects. Build nice, come out nice. Working with your hands is just such a pleasure in the shop. And that's my video for today. We'll see what I post up later this week. Cheers. Oh, I'll include links to the Permagrit tool website. I know Bob Violet Models used to carry Permagrit in the USA, and last time I was at Oshkosh, Permagrit no longer has a booth there, but I'm sure you can find it online and order them. So, best of luck in your building. Cheers.